Alright, so today I'll be giving you a tutorial on how to use the HTML language and the basics of HTML. Alright, so let's just get right into it. The first phrase that always comes at the top of your HTML document is this, exclamation point doctype HTML. And what this actually does is that it specifies that the document type will be HTML, you know. And then you have the HTML tag, and this you can specify some things in this HTML tag, including the primary language for the file. And the EN actually refers to English, ES refers to Spanish, FR refers to French. But if you're watching this tutorial, then I'm probably assuming that you'll always just use English. Anyway, so you always close the HTML tag at the very bottom of your file. Alright, and then between the start and end of this tag, you always have the head tag and the body tag. And in the head tag, you'll always put this phrase, meta charset equals UTF-8. And what this actually does is that it specifies that the character encoding of this HTML file will be UTF-8. UTF-8 is a specific character encoding type. And others include ASCII or UTF-16, but in recent times, one of the most common file types is UTF-8, so I recommend that you use UTF-8 as your default. And then you always have the title tag, and what this title actually does is that it specifies the title of your website. And if you open a website in your browser, then in your tab there's the website icon and then the name of your website. The phrase that goes in here is exactly that name of your website. Okay, and then this line is optional. The first thing that I do want to talk about here is the open parentheses percentage notation. And this allows you to run commands in HTML that are not included in the tag types like meta or head or HTML. And what this specific command actually does is that it calls this other HTML file, libs.html. And what this HTML file does is that it gathers all of the CSS files that you have to create a sort of library. So you only need to call this library to call all of these CSS files. And then moving on to the body. Okay, so below the body you always have the div tags and the p tags, and that's the most basic structure of a HTML file. And div is, you can take it as a sort of paragraph, and you can take the p tag as a sort of sentence. So it's probably easier if I just give you an example. So say that I copy and paste this p tag below. If you reload after doing that, then what you actually get is that the same phrase, which is within this p tag, sin style, is copied right next to the original phrase. And in contrast, if you actually copy and paste this entire div tag, including the p tag, what that does is that it just copy and paste the entire thing below. So that's like a separate paragraph. So that's pretty easy to understand and it's pretty intuitive, so you'll probably get the hang of that pretty soon. And then you can add classes to your tags. And what I mean by class is that class refers to the design. So I'm not sure if you've seen my CSS tutorial, but for example, in a CSS file, you have things like .button, and button is the name of a class that I just defined right here, and you can see, various design-related elements, and then you're just putting those design elements and applying them to the content of your tag. So if you put a class up here in your body tag, then it affects everything from here to here that's within your body tag, and etc. A very common place to put different div tags is on the div tag, because it separates paragraphs, and paragraphs is normally the way in which you divide your website into different sections. Anyway, you can always put a lot of different div tags as well, a lot of different classes as well in a single div tag or a body tag. So this is one class, and then BG blue is another, rounded box another, and shadow box is another. All right, and then you see this parentheses and percentage notation again here, and you'll notice for gen sent and generated, that's calling a list that I defined in a separate HTML or Python document, and so you don't really need to pay attention to that. But you can notice that this notation is pretty similar to the Python notation. So if you're familiar with Python, then you'll probably pick up the HTML commands fairly easily. And this is actually, it refers to this pertains to the framework that I'm using with this document. So with this file is actually a part of an application, and the particular application framework that I'm using here is Python Django, which is a full stack framework. And so this notation is specific to that framework, so you don't really need to worry about that. And do note that at the end of any for or if statement, you always have to put end for or end if. And there's also a comment tag, and below that you need to put end comment. And this is necessary because Python is tab sensitive, as in if you move the tab backwards, if you move the phrase backwards, then it automatically recognizes that it's not part of whatever function that you're calling. But HTML doesn't have that that function, so you could put a bunch of tabs right here, and HTML wouldn't blink an eye. So you always need to put the end for or the end if. And right, so that's basically it. HTML is actually a fairly intuitive language to use, in that it doesn't separate buttons or paragraphs or whatever. For example, this div tag, actually, that is a button right here, but it just treats that as a sort of paragraph as well. So the more you use HTML, the more familiar you'll get with it, and you'll actually find yourself picking up HTML very quickly, even more so than CSS. Okay, so I hope this tutorial helped you in your HTML learning endeavors, and I wish you luck.